Hey everyone, it's Queezi here, back with a brand new series entitled ChartChatter, where we'll be reflecting, ranking and reviewing every UK number one of a given year in chart history. And today we're kicking off with the year 2000, not for any reason in particular. I mean, I was 8 then, I do remember the majority of these, but perhaps because this was a year where there was the most number ones. There was 42 number ones in the year 2000, and time's of the essence, so let's get into the first one. And we're kicking off with Westlife, unfortunately, their song I Have a Dream / Seasons in the Sun, which was number one for 4 weeks. Yes, this is Westlife, one of the biggest yet blandest acts of the era, covering one of the greatest pop groups of all time, ABBA. And it's easy to forget just how ginormous Westlife were at this point. And, we're going to see them, sadly, 3 more times on this list. Look, I don't mind Bop Bop Baby and World of Our Own, but they're unfortunately in a few years' time. It's fairly faithful to the Swedish source material, as you'd expect, but whereas Frida gave a beautiful, mournful vocal performance on the original, dripping in hope and longing, here Westlife boy band it up a bit. So therefore we have tons of unnecessary vamping and ad-libs, along with that syrupy, drained backbeat that is the mainstay of these type of modern ballads. It's vacuous tosh, to be frank. Lush to the point of being stodgy, but thankfully not indicative of the quality singles throughout the wildly diverse and exciting year of 2000. So yes, sorry lads, but I'm just going to have to put this down at D, I'm afraid. Into our second number one of 2000 with Manic Street Preachers and The Masses Against the Classes. Now, I do quite like the Manics in general, and I especially love the fact that bassist of the band Nicky Wire begged the 50,000 faithful at the band's New Year's Eve Millennium Stadium gig to buy the single to usurp the doleful Westlife from the top of the charts. I just wish the song itself was a bit more rousing. It's a noble riposte to the climate at the time, and indeed to the band themselves, who had been far more mainstream in their leanings towards the end of the decade. The riff, however, is fairly stock, and the chorus melody always felt clunky to me, slightly too heavy on the tongue to really sing. A bit of a mouthful that's no doubt down to the fact that the Manics, like Rush, a band they greatly admire, have one member write the lyrics and then the lead singer fashions these into a melody, and it can feel a bit garbled at times, reducing the attack. Here, as ever with the Manics, there are lofty concepts. The title is a William Gladstone quote and the song is bookended with a Camus quote, but the tune itself feels a little undercooked. Big ideas, but not quite the killer song to carry them. So yeah, it does pain me slightly to do this, but I'll have to put Manics in the C here, Masses Against the Classes. It's better than Westlife at least. And our third number one is Britney Spears with Born to Make You Happy. And Britney, the first of our 2 Brit number ones. Here we have Born to Make You Happy, which as a statement, as a title of a song, as a phrase, is kind of abominable really when you think about it. It's so antiquated, born to make you happy. And it's something that's sung without a hint of irony. I mean, we've heard I Can't Live Without You plenty of times in pop, but the idea that Britney's sole reason to exist is to make her partner happy is kind of gross really. Is she a lovelorn teenager or an escort? Who needs girl power, I guess? I mean, Britney, you really don't need to be a slave for anyone. Britney sings well enough here with that trademark voice of hers, part innocence, part every single inch industry sculpted. And the production is undeniably strong as it is with these sort of tunes, especially those wah-soaked guitars that introduce each line. But as a whole, this one always felt a little tame and unengaging to me, especially when you consider that this song is between Hit Me Baby One More Time and Oops, I Did It Again, which we'll get to later on this list. It's a ballad, so of course it isn't going to be as exciting as those songs, but it's still a little water treading for me. There's also a laughably basic piano solo towards the end. It's just like someone's pressed a demo button on a Casio. But the middle 8 is surprisingly vulnerable and well judged amidst the puerile production. This is a bit of a well-intentioned misfire for me. And the song did internationally well as well, with the top 5 spot in 15 countries, but it was just in the UK and Old Ireland where it was granted the top honours. And in terms of ranking, I definitely have this above the Manic song here, but still not an amazing tune in of itself. Okay, and into our next song, which is Rise by Gabrielle, which was number 1 for 2 weeks. And this is the first great number one, in my eyes, of 2000. Here we have Gabrielle's Rise, which it should be said is essentially Bob Dylan's Knock on Heaven's Door. Indeed, Bob liked the song so much that he allowed Gabrielle to use the sample free whilst still receiving a co-writer credit. Detailing the aftermath of a breakup and the strength needed to move on, the song has an uplifting, elegiac quality to it that's perfectly complemented by Gabrielle's restrained, butter-smooth vocals. And I can't help every time but get lost in that choir behind her and those restorative string stabs. Gabrielle sounds pained and reflective on the track, admitting her mistakes in a surprisingly candid and effective manner, saying, "Look at my life, look at my heart, I've seen them fall apart." And, now she's ready to rise again. There's a universality to the sentiment of Rise that has seen it become one of Gabrielle's most well-known, well-loved songs. And it really feels like it could perfectly slot into any self-betterment montage. The tune, though, does drag somewhat as it moves on, relying on that Bob Dylan free-chord pattern the whole time. But Gabrielle is charming throughout, and, this was one of those rare 2-week number ones in 2000, where most of them are just a single week. So yeah, clearly a big fan of this tune, and I'm going to do this as the first A of the list here, with Gabrielle's Rise there. Okay, and next up, our 5th number one of 2000, coming in February, was Oasis with Go Let It Out. Now, Oasis had undeniably conquered the 90s and vanquished any pretenders, but after the nostril bloat of Be Here Now, where were they going to go next? Well, Go Let It Out certainly has a leaner appeal than that record. There's the 2-3-4 count-in, the hook of Go Let It Out, the chorus coming in near immediately, and when Noel says feel the bass after the first verse, that sharpens things up considerably. But the song still feels a little empty to me, a 3-minute song in a 4-minute 38 shell. Perhaps that's the reason that Noel is so busy on the bass throughout, and he is excellent, in full Macca mode, genuinely charting out new ground in the sound of the group. But once we have the Go Let It Out bit a few times, the Keepers of the Destiny bit, which again always felt somewhat strained to me with the organ there just to liven it up somewhat, but it's just garnish. Once we have those things, we don't have much else. The busy bass at the end, the drum loops, the psychedelic skewering. There's good stuff, but inevitably it feels a tad stale to what's come before. So yeah, ranking-wise, don't hate this. Drop it in B, but not the strongest B. Okay, and from old hat Britpop to a swirling galaxy of intergalactic sound that still manages to be a terrific pop tune, here we have All Saints with Pure Shores. This is one of those songs that the second it starts, it just creates its own vibe, the layers of shimmering synths, the sonar blips, the ghostly harmonies. It's like someone built a track entirely out of heat haze and sea foam. The verses too have such a meditative pulse. Lyrically, it's all about escapism and surrendering to something bigger than yourself. The lyric, "I've crossed the borders of time," it sounds daft written down, but sung by these four, it's hypnotic. Their voices weave around each other like smoke trails, just chilled, precise, and blissed out. Different sheets of light combining on a kaleidoscope, But this is, of course, just as much an All Saints song as it is a William Orbit song, the producer, he who produced this rippling, radiant sonic sphere of subterranean squalls and celestial pulses. The song, interestingly, is the second best-selling tune on this whole list, selling just under 200,000 in its first week and outselling the closest competitor 3-1. And of course, it was tied to the beach, the Danny Boyle film with Leo doing his sweaty gap year, backpacking, packing in loads of bags, that sort of thing, And this is a rare case where the song outshines the film it came from. Pure Shores is eternal, the beach less so. And ranking-wise, this song is such a banger, dare I say, a classic. It's going in S tier. It's the first S tier of the list. And into our 7th song, which is Madonna and her cover of American Pie. Now, interestingly, this is 2 UK number ones in a row, produced by the aforementioned William Orbit. And that's probably the most interesting thing to say about this one. Yes, it's the mighty Madonna, covering Don McLean's 1971 8.5-minute folk rock cultural touchstone about the loss of innocence and the day the music died and all that. But I can't help feel here that these two titans kind of cancel each other out. It's not a full cover, for one. It's the beginning of the first verse and all of the second and sixth verses. And sonically, it's this stodgy dream pop that feels like it's tripping over itself rather than tripping the light fantastic of Pure Shores. I mean, the chorus to American Pie is huge, you know, in its mythic import, and it really kind of rescues the tune, really, because in the verses, her royal majesty feels muted, a little too smug and self-congratulatory for no real reason. But then again, you know, she was Madonna here. She'd been Madonna for like 20 years almost by this point. So I get it, but it's a bit of a jumble, really. I don't mind the chiming guitar at the end of the chorus that heralds that end. And it's got that kind of nice techno-Americana vintage that Madonna was peddling on this album music. All in all, a bit of a baffling thing, really. I mean, it makes sense why it went to number one, but it is no patch on the original. Madonna will soon be back, however, for an amazing number one, so we'll get to that shortly. But yeah, it's a little leaden. It's not a fun listen. It's, again, a bit of a confusing one. So in terms of the rankings here, I mean, it's better than the Westlife song by a smidge, so we'll put it there. Sorry, lads. Okay, and into the 8th song now. This is Don't Give Up by Chicane featuring Bryan Adams. Now, I have absolutely zero memory of this one. I mean, granted, I was 8 at the time, but, you know, so many of these are so familiar and so iconic, but not Don't Give Up. I remember the last UK number one that Bryan Adams had done, the excellent When You're Gone, you know, with Mel C. But this spiky crepuscular number is a bit of an oddity, you know. It's more of a drug-fueled 69 than a summer of one. So yeah, here we have Chicane featuring Bryan Adams, which hit number one on the 18th of March 2000. And you know, its heart's in the right place. I do quite like this. It's a little try-hard. You know, obviously the sweaty club dance floor wasn't the natural home of the Canadian rocker. And he is somewhat out of place. His vocals altered electronically, but it's still recognisably Adams. Where the song really succeeds then is the beat. The beat is satisfyingly monotonous in a Deadmau5 kind of way. You know, there are some majestic examples later in this list of female voices just careening majestically over these beds of sound, but the Canadian's everyman rocker, he feels a little out of his element here. It still has a thrilling progression to it though, this tune. You know, the builds and the drops. It feels ahead of its time undeniably, but also oddly dated. I kind of wish we didn't have Bryan Adams being all throaty and deep over the top and just got this as an instrumental, you know. So yes, ranking-wise, I don't love what Bryan Adams is doing here, but I do really dig the actual instrumental of the track. It's super exciting, so I'm going to put it above Go Let It Out, actually. Let's put it there on the B tier. Into our 9th number one of 2000, and this is Bag It Up by Geri Halliwell. And I've always got time for a Spice Girl, and this, Geri's 3rd consecutive number one single in the UK, is a brassy, brash, and playful number that gets the job done without massively wowing. Lyrically, it's a battle of the sexes. In the song, Geri paints a picture of herself and her man at loggerheads. She's in the mood at midnight, he likes the morning. She doesn't like sugar on her TV, he likes it loaded with eye candy. Well, what's a gal to do? Well, boot him out, of course, wind him up. It's an empowering anthem and a far cry from getting with Geri's friends as a way to get to her heart. Geri's having a lot of fun on this tune and clearly in her element. Though the spoken word sections in the middle where she spells out the Venus-Mars differences between the opposite sexes is a little cringy, and Geri feels a tad smug here, but that's kind of part of her appeal, absolutely. It's a likeable tune for sure, but it's hard to argue that the song it beat to number one that week, All the Small Things by Blink-182, wouldn't have been a more worthy entry. It's well made is Bag It Up, and definitely in the upper tiers of all the Spice Girls solo singles, and I'll have to do a ranking of those one day maybe. So yeah, for Bag It Up, Go Let It Out I think is a bit more memorable, but it's not a bad tune, so we'll put it just after Go Let It Out. Okay, and into our 10th number one, we're getting into April now of 2000, and this is Mel C featuring Lisa Left Eye Lopez, Never Be the Same Again. And as I just said, always got time for a Spice Girl, and this is probably the best Spice Girls solo track of all time. Like, this is a proper glow-up moment for Mel C. You know, gone are the admittedly great tracksuits and high kicks for some more slick, sultry 90s R&B. The whole thing is just wrapped in these spiderweb arpeggios that recalls No Scrubs, and that bobbing, deadened percussion does real work setting the mood. There's a lovely restraint here, Lots of fun motifs throughout, but it's moody and smooth without being showy. And that stop-start chorus, the never be the same again, it adds a punchy rhythmic pulse that really makes the whole thing sing. Mel is absolutely in the zone vocally, raspy, controlled, seductive, stepping out from the shadow of being a Spice Girl and just into having a riot girl, She's delivering a very specific feeling here. The irrevocable shift when a friendship tips over into something much deeper. It's not a secret anymore, she sings. Now we've opened up the door. And there's no overthinking to these lyrics. They're just very clean, very emotionally honest. And then in comes Left Eye, iconic as anything, weaving perfectly into the tune's DNA without overpowering it. Her verse complements the vibe, tapping into that same emotional shift that I just mentioned. She doesn't treat it like a guest feature. She's in the story, It's a proper pop rap duet. It's not just tacked on what she brings to the song. It's genuinely sewn into its fabric. So yeah, obviously this went in at number 1 in the UK and went top 10 across Europe. And it stands tall as probably the most emotionally literate solo Spice moment of them all. There's no party, there's no platform boots, there's just this slow jam about the joy of finding new ways of expression and never closing that door. So ranking-wise, huge fan of this one. I think Pure Shores maybe has a little bit more, but I'm still putting an S tier. Okay, and we're back with our pals Westlife for the 11th number 1 of 2000. This is Fool Again. And this is mercifully the 5th and final single from their self-titled debut. A song just very painfully painted by numbers. The boys already a cliche, the wistful verses, the acoustic bed, the soaring chorus, the quiet mid-late that gives way to an inevitable key change on the final chorus, where the lads get a chance to vamp it up. I mean, you've heard this all before. It's entry-level heartbreak too. Fool to Let You Go and all that. But they do sell it, the conviction is there. And it's clearly connected with fans, sold over 200,000 copies. And I don't hate the chorus, I must say. I mean, I despise the intent of the song, the soul of it, the production of it. Of course I hate that. But the melody, the lilts, you never tell, that sort of refrain, I don't know, it is quite impactful. And I must say, my lighter is burning a hole in my pocket as I mention it. It's incredibly safe, but that's the appeal. There's no edges to cut yourself on. The early 2000s was a scary time, musically, culturally, but, not with these Irish fellas. It's just soft, smooth heartbreak, served with a white shirt and a wind machine working overtime. So yeah, ultimately what we have here is a minor tune by Westlife in a major moment of their career when even their B-tier ballads were chart toppers. Go figure. And yeah, ranking-wise, unsurprisingly, we're putting this song in D tier. But I do think it's better than the other tunes here, so we'll put it there. We'll make sure Madge is in the middle there. But yeah, Westlife, again, D tier. Okay, and following that, we have the debut single by Craig David, Fill Me In, which went straight in at number 1. And it's easy to forget how young Craigie is here. Just 19 years old, but arrives fully formed, goatee intact, already sounding like a veteran of the game. And what's the subject matter of the song is essentially, why won't your parents let me come over for a shag? It's handled with such breathless sincerity that it feels epic. The speed of the song too, both in terms of tempo and storytelling, is dizzying. This isn't just a yarn being spun though, it's an entire YA thriller in 3 minutes 50. Sneaking around, paranoid parents, missed calls, dressing in black to avoid detection. It's a saucy domestic drama, dialed up to Shakespearean proportions. There's still humour in it throughout too, and I've always found the title a tad ironic, because all Craig seemingly wants to do is fill his girlfriend in, but Fill Me In is actually what the parents are saying, speaking to the girl, asking her to clarify what she's doing with such a rapacious rapping rapscallion. The beat here from Mark Hill here, extraordinary, crystal glass garage, all arpeggios and contrapuntal shapes. And Craig David here seems to anticipate Drake for me, flicking seamlessly between silky R&B crooning and rapid-fire talk singing, I mean, you try singing Why Were You Creeping Round Late Last Night with that cadence without tripping over your own tongue at speed. Craigie can. So yeah, love this song. We'll put it in S tier. Lower end of S tier, which is still marvellous. Into our 13th number 1 of the year 2000 in the UK, and here we have a tale as old as time. Take a half-forgotten vocal from a minor mid-90s hit, bolt it onto a throbbing trance instrumental, and watch it rocket to the top of the charts. This is Tokka's Miracle by Fragma, a mashup of Coco's I Need a Miracle from 1996 and Fragma's own Tokka Me. I mean, sure, it follows the familiar early 2000s dance formula of euphoric BPMs, pillowy synth pads. You know, it's all very Ministry of Sound in a halogen-lit leisure centre, but there's something a bit sharper here. That yearning vocal, so full of ache and uplift, it just cuts through the haze with real clarity. And the production, while not exactly boundary pushing, throws in some nice textures. You know, the synth strings in the verses plucked as tight as the wired eyeball stems that the song played to, no doubt, in many a club. There's also that low-end throb that just adds enough weight to it, and a drop that really hits. Compositionally, it's pretty bare bones. Coco needs a miracle. Fragma probably needs hydration for his dry mouth, but it doesn't matter. It works because it's clean, direct, and emotionally dialed in. It captures that weirdly specific 2000s moment when you could go from club bootleg to cultural juggernaut in about 6 spins on Radio 1. Iconoclastic, a bit rough around the edges, and weirdly unforgettable. I'm going to pop this in A tier. Really dig this tune. Alright, and speaking of unexpected number ones, here's a number one that sounds like it crash landed into the top 40 from a different planet entirely. This is Oxide and Neutrino's Bound for the Reload, the debut single from this So Solid Splinter Cell that hit number one in April 2000 and made the nation's nanas panic. I mean, let's be honest, you know, this thing is chaos. It kicks off with that eerie Casualty theme sample, which was completely unauthorized at the time, of course, and then drops into a scrappy lo-fi slab of UK garage that's as cold and raw as the backseat of a Camden bus at midnight, packing in a Lockstock sample too for good British measure. The beat is murky, minimal and menacing. It doesn't so much knock as stalk around the edge of your speakers. And lyrically, there's not much in the way of narrative. You know, it's braggadocious, rattled off stream of consciousness skittering lines, you know, delivered with the breathless urgency of someone who just legged it from the scene. Neutrino's flow is clunky but charming. It shouldn't work, but it absolutely does. I mean, half the lyrics are just dig, dog, dug, you know, that's all it is really, you know, but it's super impactful. I mean, what makes it brilliant and brilliantly dumb is just how DIY it feels. You know, it's pirate radio energy, it's burned onto CDRs and passed around the playgrounds type swag. And that Casualty sample, I can't believe they sampled Casualty on this, you know, but it gives the tune an instant jolt of recognition. But however, underneath that, it's the grimy, unrelenting beat that really sticks to your ribs. And somehow, again, I don't know how, this terrifying bit of garage alchemy made it to number one. You know, it's a total curveball, a chart topper that feels like it just snuck in through the back door. There's no chorus, there's no polish, and it has no business being this catchy. And ranking-wise, I'm going to put it in B tier, just below Bryan Adams and Chicane and above Oasis. Okay, in the 15th number one now of the year 2000, we're in May now, mid-May, and Britney's back with Oops, I Did It Again. I mean, this is an iconic track here, right? Lead single from the second album of the same name, topped in over 20 countries, obviously ginormous still, you know, a touchstone. And I do really dig the song and the gigantic, elaborate construction of the thing, you know, the way Britney sings too. There's lots of inflection and rasps and ad-libs and, you know, every instrument is working overtime and, you know, there's a lot of thought that's gone into this song. It's a shame then that it's a tad samey. There's like some deja vu that hits me every time I listen because it's wearing the same school uniform as Baby One More Time, just in a different colour. The chords, the drama, even the oops, you know, it's still a knockout, but it feels very familiar. The song is cute and playful and it knows it. You know, this isn't born to be a happy slave for you, Britney, as it were. This Britney isn't really interested in a relationship with the man in this song. You know, doesn't really seem to care. I think the pre-chorus is great, the rise of it and the way it resolves into that's just so typically me. Love that part, you know, oops, ditzy me, that I'm not that innocent refrain. There's a lot in here to like, you know, and Britney kind of arrived fully formed as pop royalty. And this is a true jewel in her pigtailed crown. So yeah, we'll pop this in B tier. I definitely like it more than Go Let It Out, but I think Bound for the Reload is still still a bit stronger. And our next number one is Don't Call Me Baby by Madison Avenue. And oh, what a tune. Madison Avenue did this one, who, yeah, me neither, I don't know who they are. They're an Australian electronic music duo who were together briefly, and obviously best known for this song, but they did release an album later in the year, The Polyester Embassy, and what a 2000s cover. And look, I'm not saying this band are a one-hit wonder, but their top 10 on Spotify is 9 versions of this same amazing hit. Beginning with the loop sample, the bass then drops in, and the bass is a monster in the pocket like Omastar, and it just goes off from there. The vocals dismissive and monotone in an enthrallingly captivating, why won't you even acknowledge me kind of way. I love when it arches up on its heels too with the pre-chorus, you know, the don't underestimate me boy, I'll make you sorry you were born, that bit. This is a seductive, bewitching piece of empowerment ephemera that still glistens. Incredibly fun song to sing along to too. I mean, who hasn't sang Don't Call Me Baby into someone else's face at the club? This is a huge hit globally, but only reached number 1 here in the UK and New Zealand, interestingly. And yeah, ranking wise, I mean, just for the pure pop hit of it, let's put it in S tier. Let's put it just over Fill Me In there. Okay, and we're closing out May in 2000 with the 17th number 1 of the year. This is Billie Piper with Day and Night. And this generation has Eilish, but we had Piper. And it's great to see her now known as this acclaimed actress. And it's funny to think that, you know, at this time she was just a huge young pop star. This was Billie's 3rd and final chart topper in the UK, which was jointly the most achieved by a British female artist at this point. But soon, yeah, she would leave the music industry to pursue acting, and it's basically 5 years from this release that she would become Rose Tyler in Doctor Who. And this first single from her second album is somewhat tepid for me, actually quite sludgy. I remember this song actually coming out back in the day, but I don't feel like it's had much impact. It's somewhat forgettable compared to the singles that she had before this. It's far harder sounding and somewhat spikier than her previous efforts, you know. Certainly more in line with a Christina Britney here, but, you know, little of the personality showing through that you would see in the endearing buoyancy of I Want To or Girlfriend. You know, I love Girlfriend, Percy, great tune. You know, those had fun melodies and, like, character, but that's slightly eroded here. And these kind of choruses too, where it's every syllable on the beat every day and night, you know, she's swallowed somewhat by the production here, Billie. The lyrics also are slightly questionable in their blind obedience, you know, very much on a born to make you happy wave here, where she says, the only time I think of you is every day and all night through. Whenever I breathe, you're on my mind every day and night, babe. That's kind of gross. And ranking-wise, I mean, I'm a big fan of Billie Piper, acting-wise, music-wise, but I've got to put this top as C here. I can't put it any higher. And our next number 1 is It Feels So Good by Sonique, which was number 1 for 3 weeks. And this is a sensational song, this one, and a real full-on dance smash. The shimmering, mercurial, heady production is like liquid chrome, just shifting, pulsing, constantly undulating beneath Sonique's spellbinding vocals. She dominates this track, she haunts this track, her voice an instrument in itself, reaching like unique registers, like when she sings It's You I'm Thinking Of, you know, I'm not going to try and replicate that, you know what I'm probably talking about. She's nimble and elegant, slipping between the beats with intoxicating abandon. And yeah, this is one of those songs that really travelled. It was originally a UK hit in 1998, and it got its second wind after a Florida DJ picked it up in early 2000, which led to massive US radio play and a Billboard Hot 100 peak at number 8, and Sonique becoming the first artist signed to Universal's shiny new internet-based imprint, Republic Records. There's a healthy batch of dance floor bangers this year, but this may be the very best in my eyes. Sonique sells the yearning and sense of euphoria in equal measure. It's not a song about feeling good, it just really feels good. It's monumental. And, you know, I'm going to put this top of the crop here. I'm going to put this above Pure Shores even as my as yet favourite song of 2000's number 1s. And next up we have You See the Trouble With Me by Black Legend. Now, I probably knew most of these songs beforehand, before doing this video, before listening, before making these notes. But this is one of the ones that slipped me by. I'd never heard this before I did this video, and this is probably one of the most extraordinary songs on the list. Like, I can't believe it actually got to number 1. Not because it isn't fantastic, but it's just so out there. It's a tug of war between an uplifting live sample of sultry Barry White, encouraging the listener to put their hands together, along with a pulsing head knocker of a beat which is enthralling in its monomania. The song continually oscillates, getting particularly interesting at the 2-minute mark when the beat becomes decidedly darker and more clouded and crepuscular. It's all texture in the field, then resolving out into a wheezing single electronic whirring line with Barry White, or his imposter, because it actually had to get covered because of the sample, imploring people to sing and put their hands together, and it just rouses into this real moment. So yeah, interestingly, the soul superstar that is Barry White actually lost out on hundreds of thousands of pounds in performance royalties after he refused to let Black Legend use his vocals on the re-release single. So this is actually an imitator that we can hear on this tune, but I mean, regardless, I'm sure probably if you listen to this, maybe you've never heard this tune either. Seek this one out. I mean, the end as well, like it has this real like blistering Morse code kind of pulverizing beat. Like, I can't believe this was played on Top of the Pops and radio and such. It must have startled some people. So yeah, massive fan of this one and the risks taken on it. And we're going to put that just below Gabrielle, just below Rise here, but still very high for Black Legend. Okay, into July now of our 20th number one of the year 2000, and this is Kylie Minogue with Spinning Around. And yeah, here we have the mighty Kylie with Spinning Around. A real rebirth for her here, you know, the kind of beginning of the modern Kylie archetype, if you will. And I can certainly remember this being a giant song, you know, the video announcing not only her, but her bum too. I'm pretty sure this was the first time the idea of a bum being sexy was suggested to me, you know, but we don't need to go down to that corridor now. And interestingly, Kylie, you know, in terms of the timeline, she'd been in an experimental pop wilderness before this, with her last album, Impossible Princess, featuring 2 songs written by none other than already 2000's number one holder, James Dean Bradfield from the Manics. So yeah, I mean, this is a shimmering classic, right, for the luscious pop titan, with an iconic throwback chorus that feels propulsive and tactile. She's spinning around. Move out of her way. And also, the bassist on this song is slaying as well. My God. It's sparkling, feel-good, slightly throwaway disco pop. You know, it's an orgy of things to come, with even better Kylie singles coming, in my opinion. Can't Get You Out of My Head, In Your Eyes, Love at First Sight, and the mighty Come Into My World. So yeah, super fun song, total classic. We're popping it at the end of A tier. And our 21st number one of the year 2000 is The Real Slim Shady by Eminem. And this was Eminem really breaking through, I think, in certainly the UK consciousness. This was the first of 2 number ones he would have this year. In April 99, he first hit the chart at number 2 with My Name Is. Then Guilty Conscience peaked at number 5 in August. Forgot About Dre off Chronic 2001 reached 7 in this year. And then here we are a month later with Real Slim Shady at number 1. And I don't need to tell you this is an absolutely incredible tune, quintessential Eminem with the endless stream of guilty consciousness shots, you know, from Tom and Pammy to the hypocrisy of Tom Green being able to hump a dead moose on TV. Verse 2 especially is such a time capture with the mention of other 2000's number one winner Britney, as well as Christina and Fred Durst. Eminem also mentions downloading an MP3 too, which must be one of the earliest mentions of that in the mainstream at this time. The hook is godly, Dre's beat is tight yet soulful in its funk with a real danceable head nod energy, and it's just straight 3 verses from M2. It's an astonishing technical flourish. It was his most mainstream offering yet, sonically at least, but it's certainly still Slim Shady on this. And we've got to put this in A, right? But where do we put it in A? Well, it's better than Spinning Around, it's better than Miracle, yeah. Rise is holding on at the top of the A spot there, but we'll pop it there in A. And we continue our march through July of 2000 with The Cause and Breathless. The always wonderful Curs here with their only number one, surprisingly. A decent tune that's good fun, but marred slightly by the middle-of-the-road, inoffensive, somewhat saccharine production, courtesy of the mighty Mutt Lange, famed for not only producing Shania Twain, but also having an affair with a best friend. And in his adulterous hands, the soulful siblings become a little too stadium for me. The verse certainly has a satisfying crunch, and Andrea is as enrapturing as ever on the lead vocals, but the chorus of the go on, is when the song begins to feel a little forced for me, a bit too catchy, you know, a bit too, this is our new vibe, we've got a new producer sort of thing. I mean, there are still some of the band's adroitful melodic shifts throughout, and you know, really dig the loving feeling descent there, but I don't know, some of it's came out in the wash, I think. It's a song about seduction, falling in love and enticing that person to keep going, keep following. It's a shame then that the big shiny guitars kind of override this message, you know. There feels a bit of a disconnect, which doesn't happen in, I mean, the Core's best song is Runaway. I think Runaway is one of the greatest songs of the 90s. It was actually held off the #1 spot by Hit Me Baby One More Time. But I feel like Runaway is a much more elegant, assured proposition, whereas Breathless just feels a little too Hollywood, a little too intense, you know? I am slightly biased because I do really like the Cause, but I can't put it into the A tier. It's not C. It's better than the Jerry Halliwell song. Is it better than Go Let It Out? Go Let It Out's becoming such a stickler for me, but we'll pop it there for now. On to Ronan Keating now with Life is a Roller Coaster. And I don't know about you, but there is something about this song that gets me in my feelings. It gets me reminiscing on this wild ride we call life. And reading the YouTube comments on various performances of this song, a lot of people seem to feel the same way. You know, there's a lot of people memorializing lost ones in the comments and how much this song meant to them and makes them reflect. It's just impossible not to feel reflective, I think, listening to this powerful, soulful, light rocker, you know, something that feels distinctly more 90s than 2000s, which is all down, I believe, to songwriter Greg Alexander, he of prior mega hit You Get What You Give. And Life is a Roller Coaster has that similar exalted propulsion to it. And this song was a hit worldwide too. It actually topped the music charts of Ireland, Czech Republic, Denmark, and Iceland. Ronan sounds tremendous, as do the backing vocalists who form a key part of the song. I mean, we're a far cry from Boyzone, and this marks a real turning point in the life of this gorgeous Irishman. He even named his 2000 autobiography the very song, so that tells you a lot, doesn't it? So yeah, love this song, and for purely selfish reasons, well, it's my tier list. I mean, this is selfish altogether, so I am going to put this in S tier. Is it better than Fill Me In? Maybe it might be. Maybe it might. I know some people might balk at that. And do let me know in the comments down below, what is your ranking? What have I got wrong? What have I got right? What songs do you love? And also, what years would you like me to cover next? So going forward, I'm probably going to have a guests on for each episode. But I'm not necessarily going to go chronologically. Like, I mean, 1999 and 2001 are amazing years. And if I do 2001, I get to cover my beloved Hearsay amongst other bands. But yeah, let me know. You know, it'd be fun to do 1982 or even the 50s or stuff like that. As long as it isn't modern pop. As long as it isn't anything past 2010, I don't really have any interest in that, to be honest with you. But anything else, yeah, let me know what you think of this list down below. And also, if you got this far in the video, comment any of the years that you think are like the best years for UK #1s and the ones you'd like to see a tier list on. Okay, and our 24th #1 of the year 2000 is Queen. Queen and 5 with We Will Rock You. Now, this is a fun bit of pub trivia misdirection. So, you can ask someone, who got to #1 with We Will Rock You? And the answer, painfully, is not Queen by themselves, you know. But that's where the fun ends with this one. This is a team up of, you know, in my opinion, the greatest rock band in the history of this fair country. And the Naughty Boys next door with the broken F key, 5. Yes, it's 5 and Queen's version of We Will Rock You that was #1 the week of the 29th of July, 2000. And this version, astonishingly, manages the impossible for me. It makes Queen sound bad. The song also apparently went to #1 in El Salvador. I mean, go figure. The original is such a sparse juggernaut, but here everything feels toothless. Even the iconic drums weaker from the off. The song is a whole minute and change longer too, so rather than just ending with Brian May's glorious solos we do on the original to take us out, we now have the 5 lads chanting go, 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 and they're the problem, really, you know. Despite there being 5 of them, they can't even match the King of Queen, Freddie himself. And, you know, they rap their verses as well, saying, watch your back, we got Queen on the track, bring the feedback, you know, let it drop, better believe, all these just real empty, pointless things that they're saying. To be fair, We Will Rock You is kind of like a proto-rap track. And the tune had been sampled before in hip-hop, but Five's swaggering bad boy next door image kind of works against them here. You know, in the presence of actual greatness, they struggle to convince. See, it pains me to do this because I do worship Queen, but we're going to put this in D tier. We'll put it at the top of D tier. It's still Queen, you know, and I don't mind Five altogether, but not a good pairing here. Okay, and into our next number one, which is 7 Days by Craig David. And what a pleasant relief from the last track, as here we have an unforgettable classic. I mean, 7 Days with one of those all-timer hooks, right? I remember as a kid as well, innocently thinking that it was just Wednesday when Craig got jiggy with it, but obviously it's all of those days. Yes, this is the tune where Craig David meets a lady and spends the rest of the week making love. Taking inspiration from the Lord on high at the end, though, just to be chilled on Sunday. There's a smooth, effortless patter to this one as Craig glides above that lusty guitar. He crams a lot in, too. The song a kind of tall tale being spun type thing. There's still some garage DNA in there, too, with fun moments throughout. You know, did she decline? Didn't she mind? That section, for example. I really dig the breakdown too. It's dynamic and mature, where he speaks about not being able to get this special lady in the song out of his mind. It's a crisp, strutting number that's pretty irresistible. And interestingly, the US seemed to take to it well, with the single peaking at number 2 in 2001, which is his highest position over there. Perhaps it's because of the jarring Americanisms in the song too, which lift it slightly out of its grounded storytelling, like when he mentions getting the subway in London. But, you know, minor points aside, this tune has lost none of its playful charm and compositional elegance. So yeah, big fan of this one. Let's pop it above Black Legend and between that and the real Slim Shady. And next up we have the first appearance of a guy who was a titan at this time, Robbie Williams with Rock DJ. This is another classic heavy hitter from Robbie's Imperial phase, which went to number 1 for 1 week on the 12th of August 2000. It's of that let me entertain you cloth before Rob got a little too introspective. Here, Robbie just accepts his ordained role as world jester with some rap-inflected pop that succeeds where Five failed because he owns it with his, you know, British idiosyncrasies, talking of having a proper giggle and sticking it in the goal. The song has an excellent gallop to it. There's a real glam stomp, you know. The pre-chorus opens the song up wide and it really sticks the landing when it hits the gigantic chorus, you know, built for call and response as well. I don't wanna... Robbie is freewheeling at the centre of a sophisticated production with lots of backing vocals, and my god, the fuzz of the bass in the chorus is glorious. The song does outstay its welcome, I will say, you know, a tad. It's 4 minutes 15 with a 30-second fade out with a pretty good guitar solo, but this indulgence feels very Robbie, very rock DJ, and it's not a bad thing. This was a number 1 all over the world. It reached number 1 in Costa Rica, Estonia, Iceland, Ireland, and New Zealand. And, you know, I'm putting an A tier. It's better than Spinning Around, I think. I'm going to put it around there, really. I think Robbie's got a lot of good tunes, and this is one of his best. All right, and for the 27th tune, we are chatting about Mel C. Mel C's back. And Mel C was on a tear this year. Love this tune. Love Never Be the Same Again, as you've already heard. But yeah, this is the 4th single from her huge Northern Star record. And interestingly, it has 2 versions. The original, which is decent, and then Hex Hector's remix, which quickly became a rave anthem and a huge hit across Europe. This is a poignant, bittersweet track, built on a dense, sparkling, heady heartbeat. It's It Feels So Good from Sonique, and all the better for it. This sense of mellow, mature euphoria. Mel's vocals piercing and whiny, and I mean that in a good way, I really do. I mean that as a compliment. You know that slightly taffy way that she sings? It's devastating against this backdrop. The chorus lyric, too, turning to the object of her affection on a level as fundamental as a simple flower yielding to the biggest star in the universe at the time, well, aside from Victoria Beckham. I mean, it's just super poetic. I really dig too the middle of the song where it seems to lose its centre wonderfully with sirens and squelches careening out like some intergalactic shootout. It topped the charts of Austria, Denmark, the Netherlands, and Sweden, as well as the US Billboard Dance Club Play chart, whatever the hell that is. Mel also instantly performed the song during the Spice Girls reunion tour in 2007-2008, and it became one of the show's highlights. It was actually the ends to her solo section. So yeah, another banger from Mel C here. She was just on a godly run, and I'm just going to pop it right up there with her other thing. It feels right to have that there. And speaking of Victoria Beckham, she was actually in a race for #1 this week against the next tune we're going to speak about, the mighty Groove Jet, in brackets, If This Ain't Love, by Spiller with Sophie Ellis-Bextor. This was some posh on posh violence, if you will, with Victoria's Out of Your Mind losing out, despite having the mighty Dame Bowers involved. And it lost, of course, because this song is a triumph. It's insatiable, the unruffled groove of Spiller, accentuated by Ellis-Bextor's Couldn't Care Less If You Don't Love Me delivery. It's just a perfect mix. There's a beautiful tension between her languid cut glass vocals carried along by the playful rumble of Spiller's music. The instant the beat drops, it's got its hooks in you, and Bextor's delivery is just the icy icing on the cake. The chorus is tremendous too in its repetitions. Why does it feel? Just keeps going through that. It's like a hypnotic mantra. And finally, too, it's great that there's a song that isn't just about trying to fall in love or the pleasure of love, rather more about the mercurial flourish of a dalliance. This is a super banger. We're going to pop it at the end of S. Wow, we're going to pop it high. Well, no, S. Put it in S. 2000, such an amazing year. Okay, and on the next tune, this is Music by Madonna. We're now in September 2000. And akin to Black Legend prior, here we have a synth beat up front and centre as the fulcrum of a song, but this is a bit more palatable. Madge having fun up top with the auto-tune as the song builds, and that dribbly twist of guitar throughout is tremendous. Just, it's in the pocket so tight. This was Madonna's 10th #1 at the time, and the song has a glorious bounce to it. I mean, only Madonna, too, could call a piece of music music and get away with it. The tune, a blend of French electronica and 70s electro-funk, full of mooging. So many different styles in this one. Indeed, at the start, when she asks, "Do you like to boogie-woogie?" she also asks, "Do you like my acid rock?" And at the centre of the song are Madonna's understated yet always commanding vocals. It's got a super thumping chorus. I love the band on this one as well. I love the breaks that they go through. It's a great tribute to the power of music is music, as Madonna envisions a better world where music helps to mix the bourgeoisie and the rebels. I really enjoy this one, and we're going to pop it above Rock DJ there in the A tier. And speaking of A, here we have A1 with Take On Me. A1, do you remember them? Mostly forgotten boy band of this era. This is the first of their 2 #1s this year. And here, unfortunately, like their peers 5, they're covering a classic. Very faithfully, it must be said. Too faithfully, to be honest. They update it slightly, making it a bit gloopier sonically in some places. Bit more garage influenced, ever so slightly. But at the end of the day, it's Take On Me. You can't mess with a classic. You can't do what 5 did to We Will Rock You. I won't let you. Quite simply, it's the pulsing synth masterwork, a-ha's Take On Me, with A1 with just this boy band plonked on top. The chorus is gigantic and the boys do a good job of it. A chorus that apparently Rolling Stone are called one of the hardest to sing in pop history. The lads are okay. Nothing terrible singing-wise or now, but they do seem a bit dwarfed by this world-famous Norwegian original that was released in 1984. Though the Norwegians themselves did seem to approve of this, sending it to #1 in their charts. So yeah, a note-for-note cover that doesn't do anything new with the source material, but, the public lapped it up and A1 scored their first UK chart topper in the process. As you can tell, I don't dig this one too hard. I don't think it's awful either. I just think it's a bit anonymous. We're going to pop it bottom of C there. Okay, and into our next #1, the 31st #1 of 2000, and catching the slipstream of Spiller and Sophie Ellis-Bextor with its peddling of a utterly addictive, nourishing in a monotonous way funk offering. Here we have Lady Hear Me Tonight by Mojo, who are a French-based production outfit. Founded upon a chic sample for the ages called Soup for One, we've got a lissome house dance classic here that feels like a slightly less daft punk. It's not only the vocals atop that are wonderful, but my lord, that strident serpentine bass that snaps into place is just to die for. When you build a song on a chic sample, it's almost guaranteed to be gold, but the pure disco perfection of this song seems to be even more emotionally powerful than the original Nile Rodgers tune. Duration-wise, it's 5 minutes plus, and it does run a little long, and you kind of have heard the whole song in the first minute, but still, what a rush, what a classic. It's A tier for me, and I'm putting it above Robbie. Okay, and wrapping up September 2000, here we have Mariah Carey and Westlife. Oh God. Against All Odds, Take a Look at Me Now. This is a leaden one. Not a massive fan of Westlife, as you guys know, or Mariah, I must say. And, you know, whilst obviously Phil Collins is the towering original, the definitive cover for me is made by Steve Brookstein. You remember that guy? You know, maybe we'll cover him on a 2005 episode when we get there. So this is undeniably a great song, the original, but this is a poor version. Everything from the splashy drums to the overall woolliness of it makes it a bit of an interminable listen. Like Godzilla and Kong, these two titans cancel each other out for me. The song at its core is about one person's struggle and, you know, going through that, but stuffing it with all these voices makes it feel a bit unfocused. Regardless though, this was a rare 2-week number one for 2000. It debuted at number one, selling 112,000 copies, and remained there for a second week, selling a further 78,000 copies. Who are these idiots? And yeah, sorry Mariah, sorry boys, it's got to be done. We're putting you D tier. Mariah elevated a little bit, but yeah, we'll put it above American Pie here, but bit of a stinker. Okay, our 33rd number one now, and hey, it's All Saints again, back with another wonderfully warbly number one single, their fifth and final number one actually, making All Saints only the second girl group after the Spice Girls to achieve 5 number one singles in the UK. A tune written by someone outside the band this time. This retains the blissed out, ethereal contentness with one's place in this random universe that Pure Shores had in spades. Sonically, it is of the Pure Shores cloth. It even mentions sailing and shores in the verses, but I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? The somewhat terse verses, expanding out into that blooming chorus of wouldn't want to be anywhere else but here. According to the Daily Mirror's Ian Sturgis, the track, quote, boasts one of the most infectious pop choruses of all time, which seems a tad hyperbolic-y. It's a melancholic love song, exploring the emotions of love at first sight. It's sleek and sophisticated with the satisfying bitterness of a cup of black coffee itself. I'm not head over heels with this one. I do really like All Saints. We're going to pop this bottom of B. Okay, and the next song went to number one at the end of October 2000. This is U2 with Beautiful Day. So, okay, U2 are here. They're back, you know, returning from the electronic flirtations of the 90s, seeking refuge in the comforting branches of the Joshua tree, clutching a Bible, some Boss albums, and a Boss delay pedal. There's still some decidedly modern touches though. I love that far off percussive pulse that begins the tune before the bass line establishes the firmament. Edge has some intriguing excursions in the corner of the verses, but when the chorus kicks in, the band suddenly remember that they're one of the biggest rock bands in history, and, you know, it comes in like sunshine that it's a beautiful day, it's soaring and slightly unhinged, evangelist in its proclamations. There's a pleasing tension here too, the lyrics vaguely existential, what you don't have, you don't need it now, but delivered with the zeal of someone who's just mainlined 4 espressos and as many TED Talks. It's not their best track, but it's definitely one of their smartest. You know, it knew the cultural moment it needed to hit, and it hit it square, cleanly on the jaw. It's annoyingly hard to dislike, but there's a slight emptiness to it that I can never really get past. And I don't know, I can never be fully on board with U2. There are some U2 songs I like, but I don't think they're like one of the greatest bands of all time that they seem to be vaunted as. So I'm going to put this in B. Mid B. I think it's better than Go Let It Out, but I think Britney pips it for me there. Okay, and the 35th number one of the year 2000 in the UK was Steps with Stomp. So yes, it's Steps. You know, dig out your platform trainers, roll up your bootcut jeans. It's time for Steps with Stomp. Their second and final number one, the first being Tragedy, of course. And Stomp is once again built on borrowed bones, this time Chic's 1977 disco banger Everybody Dance, which is dragged out of a crate and reupholstered in some supermarket sheen. Steps, after all, are kind of like if Asda was a band, you know, functional, family-friendly, full of colour, and ultimately a bit plasticky around the edges. The track's got that four on the floor thump and a disco lick that, wants to make you shimmer, but instead sounds like it was piped in from a karaoke backing track. The chorus tells you to stomp all night, which feels less an invitation to dance and more a passive-aggressive demand from a PE teacher trying to force vibes at a disco. To be fair, it's not without its charm. There's a fizzy Friday night on a budget energy here that's easy to admire, but where other chart toppers manage to alchemize simplicity into something euphoric, Stomp feels oddly reined in, like it's scared to go full glitter cannon. It's steps doing what steps do, low effort frills with a bit of a wink. It doesn't stomp, it sort of shuffles in sensible heels, so yeah, not a massive fan of this one. Shout out Steps though, I have a fondness for Steps, but we're going to have to put this in C tier, I'm afraid. Where are my Steps people? There they are. Masses is better. Yeah, Masses is better. So we'll put it underneath, Steps underneath the Manic Street Preachers. Okay, and we've had Jerry, and we've had Mel C, and Victoria Beckham tried to have a number one with Dame Bowers, bafflingly. But here we have the Spice Girls with Holler. Now, this is the Spice Girls going soul-searching, if you will. Seriously, this is low-key the Spice Girls doing K-pop before K-pop. This is slick, stylized, and horny in a way that's somehow both calculated and chaotic. So after a 2-year hiatus and a clutch of solo singles in between, the girls re-emerge. Not with a zig-a-zig but with a come hither, all silky simps. The gals before our very eyes becoming Destiny's children. But fair play, the saucy transformation kinda works. The group, previously known for chucking lollipops and girl power slogans, they're now serving sleek choreography, minimalist production, and borderline thirst traps. The beat slaps in that turn-of-the-century Neptunesy kind of way, all clipped edges and kinetic bounce, and Mel C in particular sells it with the same infectious energy that made I Turn to You into a club classic. Still, there's a slight identity crisis here. A track called Holler from the Spice Girls, it's hard not to flinch slightly at that blatant Americanism. One of the Spice Girls' most endearing traits was always how proudly, defiantly British they were, and this feels like a bit of a passport swap, and not everyone's photo fits. Even so, it's got conviction, it might not be a classic, but it's far more listenable too than a lot of the Spice Girls solo singles. I'm looking at you, Dame Bowers, I must say there. And it provides that the Spice Girls, they could still evolve, even if they didn't quite stick the landing. I like this tune. I wasn't too familiar with this one before I made this video, but I really enjoyed listening back to it actually, and I like how different it is from a lot of their other stuff. I still don't think it's too great, but we're going to put it in B. We're going to put it... Is Breathless better? I like it more than Breathless. I like it more than Go Let It Out. Do I like it? See, it's very difficult doing these lists, as you can see. But we'll put it there for now. We'll put Holler there at B. Okay, into November now, and another wrist slasher from Westlife. Their 7th straight number one, proving they were as popular as ever despite the diminishing returns. We've all heard this before here. It's got the trademark windswept chorus, the band at their most, placards in the air, tugging heartstrings from grannies to grandkids, all of them weeping together in perfect harmony. A big, bloated, helium-filled chorus gives way to a limp instrumental interlude, and then, of course, the dreaded key change. Cue the Irish lads weaving intricate counter-harmonies, I must say, that somehow manage to be both technically polished and utterly lifeless. Even the title of the song, My Love, as well. The song does have its strengths, not to be too unfair. They know how to build a basic, sturdy, emotional arc across a track and, how to layer those harmonies, as I mentioned. But this is syrupy and fluffy, to the point of it being unbearable, I have to be honest. So yes, in a surprise to no one at all, I'm popping Westlife on D tier. And yeah, that is the worst of the bunch, I must say. My Love, wow. Alright, and number 138 here with A1. A1 are back with Same Old Brand New You. And, it's interesting, A1 are back here and they've suddenly became the Backstreet Boys. Right down to the solo vocal opener, which resolves into a big slab of hormonal funk pop with more needless layers than early Lost theories. On a bed of bouncy electronics and some vocoder work, the boys sound somewhat overwhelmed to my ears, and the song isn't particularly thrilling to begin with. The pre-chorus has some fun overlap. The production is decent, but the song is very workmanlike for me, you know, from the very idea being espoused in the chorus to the performance entirely. A1, a generic name for a generic boy band, but, you know, 200,000 people bought it to take its number one. This, though, it's the same old same for me, definitely. And ranking-wise, we'll just throw this in C tier with the other A1 tune. I mean, why not? Okay, and our final song of November 2000, our final number one, number 39, is Can't Fight the Moonlight by LeAnn Rimes. So we're now in Coyote Ugly territory. Great film, a film pretty much made entirely of lip gloss and denim. And at the centre of this slightly sticky millennial fever dream is LeAnn Rimes with a track so gloriously over the top that it practically slow-mo hair flicks out the speakers. Can't Fight the Moonlight is that rare breed, a full-on pop country dance hybrid that makes zero sense on paper but works like absolute dynamite in practice. Diane Warren penned it, because of course she did, what a legend, and it's got all her trademarks, the soaring emotion, slightly wonky metaphors, and a chorus that feels like it's grabbing you by the collar and dragging you into a key change, whether you like it or not. The verses tease it out nice and slow, breathy vocals, you know, smoky barroom seduction, before that chorus explodes like a cannon at a mechanical bull. And LeAnn Rimes' vocals here are ludicrously good too. She was still a teenager, but with the vocal gravitas of someone who's lived through 6 divorces and 600 bar fights. She rides the beat with a real pop precision, gliding between the coy verses and the all-in chorus like it's nothing. Love this tune. And you know what? This isn't quite S tier for me, but it's top of A. It's going ahead of Gabrielle's Rise. I know, I'm shocked too. All right, and we're in the final 3 songs now. I know there's 4 artworks down below, single artworks. There's an additional Craig David one there for 7 days, but that feels like it should be there. Craig deserves that. So just before we get to this final trio of tunes, let me know in the like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments your favourite songs from the year 2000, your favourite UK number ones, and what years you'd like to see me cover in the future of another tier list. Okay, and the 40th number one of the year 2000 is Destiny's Child with Independent Woman Part 1. Now this is how you kick off the new millennium, with sass, strings, and a manifesto disguised as a pop song. Independent Woman isn't just a banger, it's a branding exercise. Fresh off the Charlie's Angels reboot, a film that aged like skim milk, but at least it gave us this iconic track, Beyonce, Kelly, and Michelle arrive fully in their capitalist, feminist era. Every lyric is a flex, you know, about paying bills, buying jewelry, not needing a man unless he comes correct. It's less girl power and more girl invoice. Musically, the production is tight. Those pluck strings and jittery beats sound like the track is permanently mid-strut. It's all angles and assertiveness. Beyonce's vocals practically smirking. Kelly sliding in smoothly, and even if Michelle is still doing background duty at this point, she adds a lot of polish. Of course, it's not exactly intersectional feminism, this is empowerment via consumerism. I mean, it's pop music after all. But in the pop landscape of 2000, this song was seismic, you know. Every school disco DJ had this on rotation, and every 11-year-old girl briefly considered being their own boss. Love this tune, love Destiny's Child, and we're going to put this in A, just above Robbie there. Okay, and the penultimate number one of the year 2000 in the UK is S Club 7 with Never Had a Dream Come True. So S Club 7 now with their second number one, a Slowy that was also the Children in Need single that year, but this isn't your standard charity sobfest propped up by teary montages. This one has real heart. Never Had a Dream Come True is quite a delight, really. I mean, lyrically, it's the basic building blocks. I'm still in love, I can't move on, I can't speak, but Jo is absolutely sending it vocally. Her voice walking the tightrope perfectly between emotional control and cry face, sounding like she's holding it together just to finish the verse, before going to sob on the shoulder or one of the other mighty 7. The instrumentation is dripping in sugar and the synths are comfortingly thick. It does drag its heels a little in the final minute. I mean, does every line need to be repeated twice, S Club? But there's no denying the emotional heft of the tune. It's the sonic equivalent of clutching a teddy bear post-breakup. And look, you know, it charted a number one in the UK, it became a surprise hit in the US, which is a rare feat for any UK pop group after the Spice Girls, and it remains one of their most best remembered songs. Probably because it's them at their most earnest, right? There's no party, there's no sunshine, it's just Jo being sad. I do really like this song. I'm surprised, actually, how much I like this song, having listened to this for the video. We'll pop this bottom of A. It's not better than Spinning Around, but, you know, we'll put it in A tier. Okay, and the final number one of the year 2000, we finally got here. This is the last number one of the year, with Eminem and Stan. Now, if Independent Woman was the millennial anthem, as I mentioned, Stan was its eerie, rain-soaked counterpart. I mean, they're released just weeks apart, but the cultural whiplash is real. Stan is Eminem to me at his narrative peak, a song so haunting that it birthed a whole new word in the Oxford English Dictionary. But forget that it's now shorthand Stan for fan first. This track is a pitch-black parable about obsession, loneliness, and the parasocial rot under fame's surface. And it starts with that Dido sample, of course, that soft, sighing sample. My tea's gone cold, I'm wondering why. You know, it sets the perfect mood, really, a mood of domestic despair. And then comes Eminem's Stan, a fan slipping from eager into unhinged, letter by letter. And the genius lies in how normal it all seems at first. It's just a guy who really loves Slim Shady, who's maybe a bit intense, and then he's carving his name into his chest and locking his girlfriend in a trunk and driving off a bridge. And by the time M responds, of course, it's far too late. The damage is done. It's a storytelling masterclass, this song. Each verse tighter, more claustrophobic until the gut punch final line lands. The production is stark. No frills, just creeping beats and minor chords. Eminem restrains himself vocally, playing both parts with a icy delineation. There's no comic relief here. No accent, no joke bars, just a devastating masterpiece. Alright guys, well that brings us to the end then. As you can see, all 42 songs here have been ranked across all the different tiers there. Let me know what you think of my list. Let me know your favourites. Let me know the songs that you can't believe that I put in D or C tier or whatnot. You know, shout out to my Westlife heads that are maybe going to come in the comments. But yeah, this has been Queezi here. This has been really fun to do. You can expect more of these coming soon. It's going to normally be me and a guest as well going forward for that. So yeah, comment down below. Tell me what you think of the video. And I'll see you on the next one. Until then,